The South Carolina Hall of Fame was founded in Myrtle Beach in 1973 to recognize and honor contemporary and past citizens who have made outstanding contributions to South Carolina's heritage, history, and progress.
The Cardinal grew up in South Carolina. He was a minority. His friends many of them were non-Catholic. Few of them were of Italian origin. He had to find himself in the mix of a lot of things.
We were very close because we lost our father when I was 2 and he was 6 years old.
He was marked as an extraordinary young man. There were very few Catholics, of course, in the South, and very few in Columbia, South Carolina. Joseph first chose medicine, but then moved toward the priesthood.
When he announced that he was going to be a priest, I was totally shocked. I remember just almost stopping in my tracks.
I had my heart set on becoming a doctor.
Maybe instead of healing people's bodies, that he really wanted to help their souls. And I guess he realized at that time that he had a vocation.
On the day he was made a bishop, his mother, who was very wise, said to him, "Joseph, stand up straight and try not to look too pleased with yourself."
He didn't wear all of this sort of fancy regalia as if it made him a superior being. I mean, he never forgot that the gospel calls on people to be humble.
In 1972, Joseph Bernardin is named Archbishop of Cincinnati. At the age of 44, he is now the youngest archbishop in America and already a proven leader on the national stage. His skills as a reconciler will soon be put to the test by one of the country's most divisive issues.
On January 22, 1973, the Supreme Court in the Roe v. Wade decision legalized most abortions in the United States. And I think it's fair to say that that action traumatized the American bishops. The bishops, as a result of that, felt totally alienated from the culture.
I think a good test of his leadership, the one that really brought him to national prominence, was the War and Peace theme in the nuclear era. It's almost hard to think your way back into it now with the Cold War over, but it was extremely tense then, and some of the other archbishops and bishops were very hawkish, chaplains and so on, and the Cold War gave good reason to be hawkish.
I can summarize our intention. It is to draw a strong, clear line, politically and morally, against resort to nuclear weapons.
In 1982, Joseph Bernardin is named Archbishop of Chicago.
I feel so welcome that I bought a one-way ticket.
When you think about sort of Catholic centers in the country, historically, Boston, Baltimore, New York, and Chicago is a huge deal for Catholics. It's an extraordinary mix of Catholic immigrant groups. And so when you're Archbishop of Chicago, you're not only in an important city, but you tend to have a national voice almost from the moment you walk in.
6 months later, at a ceremony in Rome, Bernardin is named to the elite College of Cardinals.
I'm very gratified that the Pope has honored the Archdiocese and me in this way. I had heard that some thought that perhaps this would separate me somewhat from the priests and religious and the people. But I see it just the opposite. I'm confident that it will bring me much closer to them. My only desire is to be a good pastor.
For Bernardin, his years of moral debate in the public arena eventually come together in a vision that captures the imagination of millions. Poverty, abortion, war and peace, he says, are not separate issues, but are linked in a consistent ethic of life. The metaphor he uses is a seamless garment. It is a theme he will reiterate throughout his life.
I think the most important idea he had, and it's still an incredibly important idea, is how he would talk about the seamless garment. If you care about life before birth, you got to care about people's lives after they're born.
As we drove toward Loyola Hospital and saw this new building, Loyola University Cancer Center, he said, "Cancer Center? Wow, are we in the right place?" And I said, "I'm afraid we are."
He had surgery here, and part of the pancreas was removed. That portion of the pancreas which contained the cancer was removed. And for people who have operable pancreatic cancer, the treatment that's recommended is radiation therapy and chemotherapy when they have recovered from the surgery.
It was in that moment that everybody in the city suddenly realized how much they loved Cardinal Bernardin.
And it's really at that time, as he recuperated from his surgery, that he began what he called his cancer ministry. And he said he was the unofficial chaplain to cancer patients.
He was going through this suffering, and he decided to turn it to good. And so he started a whole ministry to cancer victims, as he had started a ministry to the victims of AIDS earlier. I mean, he took something bad that happened to him and turned it into something good for others.
In his last weeks, Bernardin attempts to sum up the peacemaker role in his life in two ways. He addresses the general public in an autobiographical book, The Gift of Peace, which will become a national bestseller. And he addresses the divisions in his own Catholic Church through an initiative called Common Ground.
Having entered the final phase of my life's journey, I am even more committed than before to this central conviction. It is wrong to waste the precious gift of time given to us as God's chosen servants on acrimony and division.
Our brother Joseph is at peace. His life on earth has ended. Cardinal Bernardin passed away this morning at 1:33 a.m.
And the solemn funeral began the next 5 days.
They could never recall in this country where a group of rabbis came into a Catholic cathedral and presided at and celebrated a Jewish prayer service for a Catholic bishop. It was just extraordinary.
The largest group of seats in the cathedral were reserved for a very simple placard, "Friends."
Even to say he was a great man or a great priest or a great bishop does not adequately say who he has been for us. The words of description are insufficient. All we can do is gather at God's altar to give thanks for his life and ministry. Thanks for what he meant to each and every one of us. Didn't he teach us? Didn't he show us the way?
There's this great quotation from Cardinal Bernardin, yesterday has gone, tomorrow has not yet come, we only have today, let us begin. And I think it just suggested somebody who every morning, every day, every year looked ahead and sort of looked to what am I supposed to do here on this earth. And I think he used his life that way. Let us begin is sort of who he was.